If you're retiring before Social Security starts, then there's a critical change that you need to make to your portfolio that could make or break your entire retirement. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through what that change is, why it's important, and a step-by-step approach you can take to make the same adjustment on your end. So to do this most effectively, we're going to take a look at Becky's plan here. As you can see, Becky is 62 years old, and if we look at her portfolio, she has $1 million in her portfolio today that's all in her 401k. Now, Becky's goal is to retire at the age of 62, and she wants to spend $5,000 per month. So far, everything's pretty straightforward. She's 62, she wants to retire, she has $1 million. The catch, or the planning point, is Becky's not going to begin collecting Social Security until the age of 67. Now, when she is 67, she'll have a fairly strong Social Security benefit coming in, but there's a gap of 5 years here, and this gap is what the most critical piece is, and we're going to address this specifically to show you what changes she make on the portfolio side to account for this gap. So let's walk through that right now. This is Becky's situation, and what we want to go through first is we want to understand what will Becky's cash flows look like. And what I mean by cash flows is year by year taking a look at, for Becky's case, what income sources will she have? So right now that will just be Social Security, but as you can see, it's going to be nothing in Social Security for the next 5 years, and then it's going to be a Social Security benefit coming in after that. Compare that to what will Becky's expenses be. So if her expenses are $5,000 per month, that's $60,000 per year, but we need to adjust that for inflation. So if we assume a 3% inflation rate, you can see that adjustment happening along the way. So year by year, what we want to look at is both what income sources does Becky have before we factor in her portfolio, what expenses will she have. We need to assume a tax rate because she has to take money out of her 401k to pay for those expenses. So what will her assumed tax rate be to net the $60,000 per year? And then what will her total outflows be, or her total expenses, including both the $5,000 per month adjusted for inflation, plus the tax payment that we're assuming here. When we take this all the way to the right-hand column here, the net flows is showing us how much of the portfolio that Becky has needs to be withdrawn year by year to support her ability to pay taxes and end up with that $5,000 per month. So what we're looking at right here is that withdrawal that she needs to take from her portfolio. So before we start talking through specific portfolio adjustments that Becky needs to make this all happen, we need to look at Becky's portfolio, and we need to look at it to say how much is she actually taking out each year as a percentage, aka as a withdrawal rate. So let's quickly take a look at Becky's portfolio. Becky today is pretty much 100% stocks, really US large growth cap stocks. That's what a majority of her portfolio is in. As we look at this, here's the projected return that we're going to assume for that asset class. To be very clear, this is in no way a guarantee that Becky or anybody will get this return. What this simply is this is taking the historical long-term average of the asset class that she's in and actually dialing it back a little bit to be conservative. But again, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. This is simply the growth rate that we're assuming as we go through this. So this is Becky's portfolio, and the fact that she's 100% invested in stocks, specifically 100% in large growth stocks, that's a very important piece I'm going to come back to in just a second. What we want to do next, though, is we want to go back to this retirement tab. Now take a look at this in her retirement tab. What this page is showing you is this is showing where will her income come from. Year one of retirement all the way through age 90, which is how long we're projecting her life expectancy. The orange is showing the withdrawals Becky will take from her portfolio, her 401k. The purple is showing the amount that she'll receive from Social Security. So as you can see, there's a whole lot more coming in from her portfolio for those first 5 years because Social Security is not happening yet. Social Security hasn't started yet. But once Social Security does start, it lessens the amount she needs to take from her portfolio while still giving her the full level of income that she needs to support her lifestyle. If we want to translate that into a withdrawal rate, here's what that looks like. She's taken anywhere from 6.5% all the way up to about 8% of her portfolio for those first 5 years. Now, quick side note. A lot of people make this mistake. They look at this. They look at how much am I taking from my portfolio, what's my portfolio value, and they might, in Becky's case, say, wow, 6.5%, 7%, 8%, that's too high. It's difficult to assume that any portfolio can sustain that through all different market environments. And by that, I mean a withdrawal rate that's that high. So a lot of people actually look at this and they just keep working because they don't think that they're in a position to retire yet. That's why this view is so important. This view of saying, well, what is your withdrawal rate going to do? Not just in year 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 of retirement, but what about in year 6? What about in year 10? What about in year 20? What's that withdrawal rate going to look like? Because as we can see in Becky's case, her withdrawal rate is going to drop pretty dramatically once Social Security begins. So here's the thing though, let's start to tie this back to her portfolio. When we look at this right here, we need to ensure that regardless of what happens in the market, Becky can maintain that level of withdrawal. Because if the market's going to go up 10, 15, 20% year after year for the first 5 years of Becky's retirement, this is easy. The market goes up 10%, she takes out 6, 7, 8%, doesn't matter. Her portfolio is still growing and she's able to support that. And once Social Security begins, she has to take much less out, so a much more sustainable withdrawal rate. But what if that's not the case? What if Becky retires and immediately the market drops 20% in this year and she's taken out 6.5%? What if the following year the market's down again and she's taken out another 7+%, which by the way, if the market were to drop, that withdrawal rate would actually increase because she's still taking the same dollar amount, but it's based on a smaller portfolio value. So as a withdrawal percentage, that withdrawal is actually spiking. That is how retirements are ruined. Retirements are ruined when people are taking too high of an amount and their portfolio is not properly positioned to support that. So what can Becky do? And as I go to the next page, just as an aside, if you're looking for access to the software and you want to run your own projections, you can get access to it in the Retirement Academy link below. Link is in the show notes to see there. But going back to Becky's plan to say, what can Becky do? Here's what Becky can do. Becky should be taking a look at her cash flows here. And what she should be doing is she should be saying for the next 5 years, how much does she need to take out of her portfolio? If you add up these next 5 years of living expenses, it comes out to about $380,000. So what's the significance of that 5 years? Is that a magic number? Is that a silver bullet? No. What that is it's taking a look at average downturns in the US stock market. And the average bear market takes about 2.5 years from the time the market hits its top to the bear market and the market bottoms out to recovering back to the top again. That's about 2.5 years. And on the longer end, it can be about 5 years. Could, of course, potentially be longer, but just using history as our guide. 5 years tends to be about the long end of what that might look like. So with that in mind, how do we have enough money that's insulated from the stock market so if the market is dropping 20, 30, 40, 50% or more, we're not going to enjoy it, but we're going to have some stable investments, some type of investments that we can draw from to meet our living expenses without having to sell stocks when they're down big. So let's look at that for Becky's case. If you add these numbers up here, this comes out to about $380,000. And these numbers here, I mean the first 5 years of retirement. So how much does Becky need from her portfolio that we need to make sure is protected? Because just to go back to my previous point, if the market does great for the next 5 years, no issue. Becky simply pulls money from wherever. As long as the thing's going up, she can pull money and be okay. It's what if the market's going down? That's where the potential risk is, and that's what we need to make sure that we're protecting against. So we need to make sure that $380,000 over the next 5 years is set aside. So let's now define, what does set aside mean? Well, set aside could simply be income coming from her portfolio. Generally speaking, this is not a hard and fast guarantee, but generally speaking, even when the market drops, companies still continue to pay dividends without cutting dividends too much. So if part of Becky's portfolio is paying dividends, maybe we don't want to count on the entire amount of dividends being there for Becky, but we can count on part of it, at least as a reasonable assumption to start. So for example, let's assume that Becky's portfolio is generating 2% per year in dividends. On a $1 million portfolio, that's $20,000 per year. But let's be safe. Let's trim 20% off the top of that just to say, what if the stock market drops and what if companies cut their dividends by 20% over that time period? Now we'd be assuming about 1.6% per year in dividends, so $16,000 per year. If we take $16,000 per year, multiply that by 5, that comes out to about $80,000. Now, by the way, I'm kind of doing this more of a back of the napkin type approach just to illustrate the concept here. There are some nuances that you want to dial in to get this more precise, but I think you're going to get 90+% of the point here as we go through it like this. So Becky, once again, needs $380,000 to be safe for those first 5 years. Of that, we can assume, at least as a starting point, that $80,000 will be coming from cash dividends that Becky will be receiving over the next 5 years. What that leaves is $300,000 that needs to be insulated from the stock market. We cannot afford for that $300,000 to drop 30+% in a downturn because that's money that we need in the first 5 years. We don't have time to wait for it to recover. So that $300,000 might be something that we put into something like bonds. Not just any bonds, but hopefully short-term, high-quality bonds, bonds that we can count on to be there for us when we need them. So if we have $1 million portfolio, If 300,000 that needs to be really safe, needs to be in some type of reserve account, that means that the other 700,000 could be invested in more of that equity, more of that stock type portfolio. What does that mean? Well, that means that $1 million portfolio that today is 100% invested in large cap growth stocks should probably be closer to something like a 70-30 portfolio. And of the 70% in stocks, ideally more diversified than just US large cap stocks. So let's take a look at what this means for Becky. And I think that something's going to surprise you before we look at the other side of it to see the true benefit. So if we go back to Becky's plan, what this is assuming is this is just assuming straight line growth. We saw Becky's portfolio. If she gets 8.5% per year long term from her portfolio, which again is just an assumption, definitely not a guarantee. Becky has her $1 million today. That $1 million, it's going to dip a little bit in the first few years simply because Becky's pulling money from her portfolio before Social Security kicks in. But once Social Security kicks in, her portfolio continues growing all the way until she passes at age 90. If we look at this from a probability of success standpoint, though, it's not a bad probability of success, but it's at 73%. 73%, meaning yes, if you get 8.5% every single year, of course you're going to be fine. But you're not going to get 8.5% every single year. You're going to get a whole range of potential returns, and especially because Becky's invested fully in one asset class, that range of returns could be fairly high. So if we go back to this and say, well, what would this look like if instead of a 100% stock portfolio, Becky were to invest in a 70-30 portfolio? Not because that's some cookie cutter solution for Becky, but because we worked through her cash flows to identify what does she need in the next 5 years and then work backwards into saying what is the right stock to bond mix. We can come here and say, what might that look like? So if we switch Becky's allocation to what's called a growth allocation here, what the growth allocation here is really a 70-30 mix. If we run this and refresh this plan, here's the thing that's surprising. The portfolio that should be better for Becky somehow ends up with less money than the previous portfolio would have been. So at first glance, this looks like that's a bad decision. Why on earth would Becky do this? Well, here's what does change. Her probability of success changes. What we've essentially done here is we've exchanged some potential long-term growth by having all of her money concentrated in one asset class that, of course, over time has a higher likelihood of generating a greater return. But we've taken a lot of risk off the table because Becky now has a portfolio that's there that has different types of investments that she can draw from when the market is down. So what this is starting to do is this is starting to minimize the level of risk that Becky's carrying with her as she goes into retirement. And here's the interesting thing. What this shows doesn't even tell the full story, because what this is showing is this is just showing what if Becky were to make this change and never ever change her portfolio allocation ever again. So an all stock portfolio here and a more moderate portfolio here. The all stock portfolio, higher potential, but it does come with more risk. The interesting thing is this, is if you go back to Becky's cash flow, she does not need to maintain a moderate portfolio forever. Now, she may want to because she feels more comfortable with that type of a mix. But if we just go back to what does she need, by the time that Social Security kicks in, Becky's only going to be needing somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000 per year, adjusted for inflation, from her portfolio. Her investment portfolio at that time is going to be in the $1 million range, which means if we go back to her withdrawal rate, just to recap what we've already seen, her withdrawal rate is going to drop from 8% at age 66 to 3.2% at age 68. The higher your withdrawal rate, the more money you need set aside in something stable, because when there's a market downturn, you need to be able to access more of those reserves. The less amount you need from your portfolio, the more you could afford to be more growth oriented with your investments. So all this to say, if you're retiring before you actually start collecting Social Security, you should most likely consider having a different portfolio allocation for those years when you're fully dependent upon your portfolio. In Becky's case, from age 62 to age 67. From age 67 and beyond, that's where you can revisit that conversation. If your withdrawal rate is changing dramatically, your portfolio allocation perhaps might want to match that. So once again, if you want to run this numbers and do this on your own, you have access to this same software in the Retirement Planning Academy link below. But the key takeaway here is it's not uncommon that you should be changing your portfolio allocation throughout your retirement. Not because of trying to predict what's going to happen in the market, not because of how you're feeling about current events, but because of different income sources and how those different income sources are changing the withdrawal rate that you actually need from your portfolio. Root Financial has not provided any compensation for and does not influence the content of any testimonials and endorsements shown. Any testimonials and endorsements shown have been invited, have been shared with each individual's permission, and are not necessarily representative of the experience of other clients. To our knowledge, no other conflicts of interest exist regarding these testimonials and endorsements. Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial, and if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.